The morning I found out our power had been cut was the same morning I had to call in a favor from my neighbor just to iron my work uniform. Mrs. Patterson didn't say anything about it. She just plugged my iron into her kitchen outlet and handed me a cup of coffee while I stood there in her doorway, still half asleep, and I was so grateful I almost cried. That was the kind of month it had been. I worked the breakfast and lunch shift at Harlow's, a mid-range American bistro on the corner of 5th and Clement in San Francisco, the kind of place that served eggs Benedict on weekends and called their grilled cheese artisanal. The tips were decent when the tech crowd came in, less so on Tuesdays. I'd been there almost 2 years, long enough that the manager, Terry, let me pick my own sections and didn't make me wear the little apron pins the newer servers had to wear. My daughter Rosie was 7. She had my mother's stubborn chin and her father's green eyes, which I noticed every single morning when I braided her hair before school, and which I had mostly learned to look at without flinching. Mostly. I dropped her off at Westwood Elementary at 7:45, double-checked her lunch bag for the 3rd time, because she had a habit of trading her fruit cup for chips, and then took the 38 bus across town. I was running 4 minutes late, and I knew Terry would notice, because Terry noticed everything. But there was a woman on the bus with a stroller and 2 bags of groceries who needed the front ramp, and nobody was moving. So I helped her. I was always doing things like that. Rosie said it was because I had a helper heart. I told her it was just being a decent human being. She said those were the same thing. I got to Harlow's at 8:17. 4 minutes, Terry said without looking up. Woman with a stroller, I said. He waved his hand. Section 3 is yours. Couple at the window's been waiting. I tied on my apron, tucked my order pad into my pocket, and pushed through to the floor. The shift moved the way Tuesday shifts always did. Slow at first, then a sudden rush around 11 that left me running between 4 tables at once, then quiet again by 1:30. I refilled waters, recited specials, smiled at a man who sent his eggs back twice. Normal, ordinary, the kind of day where you stop actually seeing the people in front of you and just see tasks. Order, deliver, check back, clear. I was carrying a tray of iced teas to table 7 when the door opened. I didn't look up right away. We were getting a lunch rush. The hostess was seating people in my section, and I had 4 glasses to set down without spilling. I did that. First. I set down the glasses, thanked the table, told them their food would be out in just a moment, and then I turned around. There were 3 men standing near the host stand. The one in the middle was tall. Dark coat, the kind that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His hair was shorter than I remembered, and there were angles in his face now that hadn't been there before. Something sharper. Like time had carved him down to something more severe. But the way he stood, one hand in his coat pocket, head slightly tilted, while he listened to whoever was talking to him, that was exactly the same. I knew that posture. I had spent 2 years memorizing it. His name was Sebastian Voss, and the last time I'd seen him, he was 23 years old, sitting across from me in a hospital waiting room at 11 o'clock at night, telling me he had to go. He hadn't said where. He hadn't said for how long. He'd said he was sorry that he had no choice. That the situation was complicated in ways he couldn't explain to me yet. I had asked him to explain anyway. He'd stood up, pressed a kiss to my forehead, and walked out through the sliding glass doors into the cold, and I hadn't heard from him again. That was 8 years ago. I turned back toward the kitchen. My hands were steady. I made sure of that before I went to pick up the next order. I breathed in through my nose, out through my mouth, the way my therapist had taught me 3 years ago, when I was white-knuckling my way through Rosie's newborn months alone. I hadn't needed that breathing technique in a long time. Apparently, I still had it. Table 4's up, Danny called from the window. Got it, I said, and went to get it. I served table 4. I checked on table 9. I took a new order from a woman in a blazer who wanted the grain bowl with dressing on the side and no cucumber. I wrote it down. I went back to the kitchen. I did not look toward the front of the restaurant. What I could not stop was the awareness. The specific, terrible awareness of exactly where in the room he was, even without looking. That sense had not gone anywhere in 8 years, apparently. I had just stopped having a reason to use it. The hostess sat his party in section 2, which was Mara's section, and I exhaled something I didn't want to name. I made it through the next 40 minutes without incident. I was starting to believe I might actually get through the shift. Then Mara came up behind me at the beverage station. "Hey," she said, lowering her voice. "Table 12 is asking for me specifically. Is that weird?" I turned. "What?" "The guy in the dark coat," he said, and I'm quoting, "I'd like to speak with the server who came in late this morning." She paused. "Terry told him it was you." I think Terry thought it was a complaint. I set down the glass I was holding very carefully. "What did you say?" "I said I'd let you know." Mara tilted her head. "Do you know him?" "No," I said. It was not entirely a lie. I had known someone. I was not sure I knew whoever was sitting at table 12. I took a breath, smoothed my apron, and walked over. He was sitting with the other two men, but slightly apart from them, in the way that people with authority sometimes do. Like there's an invisible boundary around them that everyone else has simply agreed to respect. He was looking at the menu when I approached. He didn't look up immediately. "What can I get started for you?" I said. He looked up. For a second, neither of us said anything. I watched something move across his face, recognition, and something else I couldn't name, something that pulled tighter than surprise. His jaw shifted slightly. "Ren," he said. My name in his voice after 8 years. I had imagined this moment maybe 1,000 times in the first year, and then tried very hard to stop imagining it. Hearing it now was strange in a way I hadn't prepared for. Not painful exactly. More like pressing on a bruise you'd forgotten you had. "Sir," I said, "can I get you something to drink to start?" Something flickered in his eyes. He accepted it. "Water," he said. "Thank you." "Of course." I went back to the beverage station, filled a glass, returned, set it down. Professional. Practiced. He watched me the whole time with an expression I refused to try to read. The two men with him were watching me too, but differently, with the particular blankness of people whose job is to notice things and not react to them. It made the back of my neck prickle. "I'll give you a few more minutes with the menu," I said. "Ren." His voice was quiet. I stopped. "Please," he said. "Just 1 minute. That's all I'm asking." I looked at him then. Really looked. There were things I hadn't let myself see in those first few seconds. The tension around his eyes. The way his hand, resting on the table, was not quite still. He looked, despite everything. The coat, the men, whatever invisible weight surrounded him. Like someone who had walked a very long distance to get here, and wasn't sure he'd done the right thing. I knew what he'd become. It hadn't been hard to find out, eventually, once I stopped actively trying not to know. Sebastian Voss, whose uncle had owed money to the wrong people when Sebastian was 19, who had spent years in circles I only half understood, who had become, somewhere along the way, someone people in this city did not cross. I didn't know the details. I hadn't wanted to. But I knew enough. "I have other tables," I said. It came out steadier than I felt. "I know. I'll order whatever you recommend. I just need you to know I'm here, and I'd like to talk to you when you're off. If you're willing. If you're not, I'll leave and I won't come back." I looked at him for a long moment. "The grain bowl," I said. "It's good. Dressing on the side." I walked away. I thought about calling my mom during my break. I thought about calling my friend Jenna, who would have had very strong opinions and would have delivered them at volume. I did neither. I sat in the back hallway with my phone in my hand and thought about Rosie, who was in 2nd grade and learning to write in cursive, and had recently declared that her favorite food was mashed potatoes, with the skin still on, because that's where the vitamins are. I thought about how she asked me sometimes, in the particular offhand way that children have of asking enormous things, why she didn't have a dad. I always said that some families were just built differently, and that ours was strong and whole the way it was. She always accepted this. She was 7. I didn't know how much longer acceptance would be enough. Sebastian ate his grain bowl. He left a tip that was so far outside the normal range that Mara, who was running the payment, came to show me the receipt with wide eyes. "He also left his number," she said. "On the back of the receipt. For you." I took the receipt. I looked at the number. I didn't throw it away, which I told myself meant nothing. He was waiting outside when I got off at 3:15. He wasn't leaning against a car or standing in a way that suggested he expected anything. He was just standing on the sidewalk with his hands in his coat pockets, and he looked up when the door opened, and he looked so much like himself, the one I had known, before everything, that I had to stop moving for a second. "You don't have to talk to me," he said. "I know. I just wanted to see you. You've seen me," I said. A muscle in his jaw moved. "Ren. Don't." I adjusted my bag on my shoulder. "Don't say my name like that, like we just picked up where we left off. It's been 8 years, Sebastian. You walked out of a hospital waiting room and disappeared. I was 24. I stopped. It doesn't matter." "It does matter," he said. "I know it does. I'm not here to pretend it doesn't. Then why are you here?" He looked at me for a moment. The afternoon light was thin and cold, the kind San Francisco does in February, and it made everything look a little sharper than it needed to. "I came back 2 years ago," he said. "I've been here for 2 years. I didn't reach out because I didn't think you'd want me to. I still don't know if you do. But I saw you through the window when we were parking, and I—" He stopped, started again. I couldn't just drive past. 2 years. He had been in the same city as me for 2 years. I didn't know what to do with that. I filed it somewhere and decided to feel it later. "I have to pick up my daughter," I said. Something changed in his face, very briefly. "You have a daughter?" "Yes," he nodded slowly. "How old is she?" I looked at him. He looked back at me. I watched him do the math, or try to, and I watched the moment he stopped himself from finishing it. 7, I said. The word landed between us. He didn't say anything for a long time. The street went about its business around us. A bus hissing past, someone walking a dog, a delivery truck double-parked halfway up the block. Normal city sounds. Ordinary afternoon. "Ren," he finally said. His voice was different now. Lower. "I have to go," I said. "Can I?" He stopped. "Is she?" "I have to go, Sebastian." I turned and walked toward the bus stop. My hands were shaking now, which they had not been before, and I shoved them into my pockets. I did not look back. I had learned 8 years ago that looking back cost more than I could afford. Rosie was the last one out of class, as usual. She came through the double doors with her backpack half open, and her left shoe untied, and a painting in her hand that she held out in front of her with tremendous seriousness. "It's our apartment," she announced. "And that's you, and that's me, and that's the window where the pigeon sits." There was a small brown smear near what I assumed was the window that I guessed was the pigeon. "It's perfect," I said. "Mrs. Delgado said it had very good use of space. She's right." I crouched down and tied her shoe. "What do you want for dinner?" "Breakfast for dinner." "Pancakes it is." She tucked her hand into mine, and we walked toward the bus stop, and she told me about her day with the thoroughness and narrative organization of someone who has many things to report and trusts that her audience is fully committed. I listened to every word. By the time we got home, I knew about a disagreement over a handball, a new chapter book the teacher had started reading aloud. A boy named Cooper who had apparently sneezed on Rosie's worksheet and then just looked at her, and a substitute music teacher who had played them a song on ukulele. I made pancakes. I gave Rosie a bath. I read her 2 chapters of her book, and then sat on the edge of her bed after she fell asleep, looking at her face in the dim glow of her nightlight. I had done this alone for 7 years. I had made it work because I had to. Because there was no version of my life where I didn't show up for her. Because she was mine, and she was good, and she deserved everything I had. I had stopped being angry about doing it alone somewhere around year 3. Or I thought I had. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. I already knew. "I'm not asking to walk back into your life like nothing happened. I know I don't have that right. I'm asking for the chance to explain and to face whatever you need to say to me. That's all." S.I. set the phone down. I picked it up again. "Where?" he replied immediately. "Wherever feels safe to you. A public place. Anywhere." I looked at my daughter sleeping. "Coffee Saturday. 10 a.m. Blue Heron on Sacramento. You have 45 minutes. I put the phone face down and did not check it again that night. He was there when I arrived. Of course he was. He was already at a corner table with 2 coffees. He had remembered mine, which was irritating. And he stood up when I came in, which he had always done. And I had always liked that about him, and I liked it now too against my will. I sat down. I did not thank him for the coffee. "You have 45 minutes, I said. "I know." He sat. "I'll start from the beginning." He did. His uncle, Vincent, had been laundering money for a man named Gregor. I had heard that name before, vaguely, the way you hear about weather in a city you've never visited. When Gregor's people came to collect a debt Vincent couldn't pay, Sebastian had been the one to negotiate. He had done it to keep Vincent alive. The negotiation had worked, but the price was that Sebastian now owed Gregor something in return. And what Gregor wanted was Sebastian's particular skill set. He was good with numbers, good with logistics, good at moving things without leaving traces. He'd spent 6 years inside that world, telling himself it was temporary, finding that nothing inside those systems is ever temporary, and eventually working his way to a position where he had leverage, and then more leverage, until 2 years ago he had used that leverage to get out. He told me all of this quietly, with the particular flatness of someone who has rehearsed something many times and is now just trying to get through it accurately. "I didn't tell you because I was trying to protect you," he said. "I know that's what everyone says. I know it sounds like an excuse." "It does," I agreed. "I also know that leaving the way I did was wrong. I was 23 and I was scared, and I told myself that disappearing was better than pulling you into something dangerous. I don't believe that now. I understand now that I took away your choice. I'm sorry for that. I'm genuinely sorry." I wrapped both hands around my coffee cup. "How did you get out?" I asked. "Carefully," he said. "Over about 3 years. I have lawyers. It's legitimate now what I do. Asset management, private consulting. I can show you documentation if you want. I want you to be able to verify anything I tell you." I looked at him. "Why does it matter to you what I think? After 8 years? Because I never stopped." He said it simply, without drama. "I know that might be hard to hear. But you asked. It was hard to hear. Not in the way I would have expected. I had grieved this man at 24, and at 26, and again at 28, and I had told myself I was done grieving him, and mostly, I believed it. But grief is not a door you close and lock. Sometimes you're just not standing in that particular hallway. "Rosie is yours," I said. I hadn't planned to say it that way. I had planned to ease into it, to have some kind of measured approach. But I was tired, and he was sitting across from me being honest, and it was the most important thing, so I said it. He went very still. "I found out after you left," I said, keeping my voice even. "I tried to reach you. I tried for 4 months. The number I had didn't work. I looked for you. I paused, and then I stopped looking, because I had to. Because I had a baby coming, and I needed all of that energy for her." His eyes were bright. He was not going to cry in a coffee shop. I could tell he was fighting it. And something about watching him fight it made my own throat tighten. "She has your eyes," I said. "She knows about the pigeon that sits on our windowsill, and she thinks mashed potato skins are a superfood, and she is the most resilient person I have ever met. And she got that from having to be, and I will not let anyone disrupt what we have built. So before this goes any further, you need to understand that. Whatever you are now, whatever this is, she comes first. That is not negotiable." "I understand," he said. "I'm not finished," I said. "Sorry. Go ahead. She has asked me about her father, not constantly. A few times. I haven't lied to her, but I haven't told her everything because she's 7 and there is time. But she's going to keep asking. And I need to know that if you are going to be part of this, if that's what this conversation is moving toward, that you are not going to disappear again. I need to know that you have thought about what it means to be a constant presence in a child's life, and not just a feeling you show up with." Sebastian looked at me for a long moment. The coffee shop noise went on around us. Someone laughed at the counter. The door opened and let in a gust of February air. "I have thought about it," he said. "I've thought about it for 2 years. I drove past her school once." He stopped. "That's probably a strange thing to admit." "Which school?" "Westwood," I exhaled. "She goes there." "I know. I didn't go in. I wasn't trying to be. I just needed to know she was okay. I drove past and I saw kids on the playground and I left." He looked down at his hands. "I know I don't have any rights here. I'm not coming in claiming anything. I'm asking. I'm asking you to tell me what would be okay, and I will do exactly that. Nothing more, and I will not push." I thought about Rosie's painting on our refrigerator, the pigeon in the corner, the way she had held it out to me with both hands. "I need time," I said. "Okay, I need to talk to someone. My mom, maybe a counselor. This is not a simple situation. I know, and I need you to understand that if at any point this becomes something that confuses her or hurts her, I will end it. No conversation. Done. Understood. I picked up my coffee. I drank some of it. It had gone slightly cool. She likes mashed potatoes, I said finally. And she's learning cursive. And she cried for 20 minutes last month because a bird flew into our window and she was convinced she'd never get over it. And then the next morning she was completely fine and had moved on entirely. I shook my head. She's a lot. Something happened to his expression then. I didn't have a word for it. It was the particular look of someone being handed something they were not prepared to hold. She sounds incredible, he said. She is, I said. She really, really is. We sat there for another 20 minutes, not talking about anything important. The neighborhood, what had changed, a coffee shop that used to be on this block that had become a smoothie place. Normal things, easy things, the kind of conversation that feels like testing the ice before you put your full weight on it. When I left, he walked me to the door and held it open, and I stepped out onto the sidewalk and turned to face him. I'll be in touch, I said. I'll be here, he said. I walked toward the bus stop. The February morning was thin and pale. The city going about its Saturday, the way it always did. I thought about Rosie at home with Mrs. Patterson, probably being given too many cookies and shown knitting techniques she would immediately forget. I thought about the phone call I needed to make to my mom, who was going to have approximately everything to say. I thought about how strange it was to feel this many things at once and have none of them be the one you expected to feel. I had expected anger, mostly. I had been angry for a long time. What I felt now was more complicated and less resolved, the way real things usually are. I didn't know what we were going to become. I didn't know if there was a version of this that ended well, or what well even meant in a situation with this much history folded into it. What I knew was that my daughter was going to wake up tomorrow and want pancakes and tell me something extraordinary that happened to her in a completely ordinary moment, and I was going to be there for it. Whatever came next, that part wasn't changing. The bus came. I got on. Out the window. The city looked exactly the same as it always had, and also, in some way I couldn't quite name yet, entirely different.